InnerQuest explores various pathways through which you can connect with the infinite wisdom of the universe and apply it to personal, professional, and spiritual growth. This program, featuring accomplished practitioners, educators, and authors, is provided by Infinity Foundation, an innovative center for holistic studies and research. We invite you to share this journey with us.
Hello, welcome to InnerQuest. My name is Jay Stone, your host for today, and sitting to my right is our guest, Dr. Richard P. Harris. Welcome, Dr. Harris.
Thank you.
Dr. Harris is a physician, psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, organizational consultant, and performance coach with special interest in golf coaching. Dr. Harris has an ongoing research project on performance and studies performance more personally as an accomplished jazz pianist and skilled golfer-athlete. Dr. Harris is currently writing a book on golf with Michael Hebron, consistently rated one of the top 20 golf instructors in America. Dr. Harris, is it okay to call you by your first name, Richard?
Please.
Richard, how'd you go from a physician psychiatrist to a golf coach?
Well, it was a journey starting almost immediately when I got into practice. I started doing work outside of the normal office practice. And the first thing I did was acted as a medical expert for the Social Security Administration. And back at that time, there were a number of people applying for disability in this city. The criteria was quite wide. People who were heroin addicts and alcoholics could get disability at that time. So I acted as a medical expert for hearings for people who were applying for disability. After that, I started doing consulting for IBM. And in that capacity, I would evaluate the employees as to their capacity to do a certain job or whether they're having problems on the job. And that led to more consultation with other large companies in which I would evaluate individuals, and always the issue was performance. Could they do a job? What were the difficulties, and so forth. And then after that, I started doing executive coaching, team building, got more into what you might call the treatment aspect as opposed to assessment of performance problems.
And what are some of the how do you go about treating a performance problem?
Well, depending on what the performance issue is. I mean,
well, with golf, since our
with golf.
Topic is golf today.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call it a performance problem. I would call it individuals are interested in improving their performance. And generally speaking, my approach is to look at the whole person as opposed to thinking about specific details of a golf swing. Mm-hmm. Much of the traditional golf instruction has to do with where to put your elbow and your shoulders and how to grip it and so forth.
Yeah, when I watch TV, that's what the golf announcers seem to be saying. You know, like the shoulder wasn't too high, and it did put the club too far back.
That's correct. That's correct, and that tends to be the emphasis in the golf industry. What we call mechanics. And certainly where the club ends up is important. And I'll show you that a bit later. We'll do some demonstration. But by and large, my interest is in looking at not just the physical element, but the psychological element as well. And in the course of my work, I became familiar with Michael Hebron. And he is a very well-known golf instructor, and we decided to do a book together that combined the psychological with the physical, and combining them so that in some ways you really couldn't tell the difference.
You know, it kind of reminds me of a book called Getting Well Again. Did you ever hear it? By Carl Simonton? He's a radiological oncologist.
No.
Well, it's an interesting book because he was kind of the body, and his wife was a psychologist, was the mind, and wrote this incredible book in a way that kind of changed our thinking that led to the science of psychoneuroimmunology.
Oh.
And so that's what I'm hearing with you. It's like a full mind-body approach.
Right, because most of the books that are written are either written by the swing gurus or the mental coaches. So we're trying to combine the two.
Now, is Michael Hebron local here?
No, he's in New York.
Uh-huh. And how far along are you with your book?
Well, I've written a couple of drafts, and we're trying to hone in on the next draft.
And so what is your contribution to the psychological approach to golf?
Well, I prefer not to view myself as being involved just with the psychological element.
Okay.
When we think about psychology, we tend to think about thinking and feeling, the mental side of things. And certainly, I have expertise in that area, but people have to realize that when we study psychology, we're interested in feelings, thinking, and behavior. And feelings are always physical.
Yeah.
In other words, you know that you're feeling a certain way by certain physical...
It's a description of our energy. I've heard Dr. Bradshaw describe emotions as energy in motion. So if we're feeling angry, it describes our body one way. If we're peaceful, it describes our body another way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So in the end, when we're talking about golf, it is a physical activity. So I am interested in the physical aspects of golf. The question is what drives the swing, and what are the factors that interfere, and what are the factors that facilitate good swinging. So I really try to combine all of them, all
now,
the factors.
You mentioned, or you're like a jazz pianist?
Yes.
How does jazz pianists overlap with golfing? Do you think, that by tapping into that side of the brain, like the musical genius kind of comes through? Well,
there are a couple of ways. One is jazz is about improvisation. And
I never thought of that way.
Jazz is about improvisation, and sports, one has to improvise. You cannot plan everything. Now, if you're doing a gymnastics routine, okay, there's really not room for improvisation.
Right. I mean, how do you plan for the wind or the sun in your eyes?
There's so many factors.
Yeah.
And my belief is that every day we have to adjust to the conditions of the course, how you're feeling that day. So it requires adjusting, which is, in my mind, improvisation. And certainly as the round progresses, you get into situations that you're not necessarily accustomed to, and you have to figure out how to do it on the fly. So that's one way in which jazz relates. There's another way that's very important. Thelonious Monk said, as far as jazz go, wrong is right. Wrong is right, which means any note will work. And it provides a certain freedom of expression when you have that idea. Now in golf, unfortunately, golfers are bound up by the idea that this is right, this is wrong, this is correct, this is incorrect. And to some extent, the teaching industry tends to reinforce that. And I believe that inhibits performance when there's too much concern about, is this right, is this wrong?
So what I'm hearing you saying is that there's no one right way to hit a golf shot, that you should be free to improvise and go with how you feel.
There is no one right way to swing.
Yeah.
Certainly you see a number of different swings on the tour, and they all work. Perhaps maybe more familiar to people is the way people bat. You see a lot of different batting styles.
Sure.
That somehow get to the ball. So in the end, it's getting to the ball and ball making contact with the bat.
Yeah.